We're away from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 37, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Prabhupada from the Acharya Avesta. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajoguna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapatma Vidhinam Havairinam. Page 204 in the English edition. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajoguna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapatma Vidhinam Havairinam. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead says, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into lust, and which is the all-devouring simple enemy of this world. Support. When a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal lust for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, and milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into lust. Lust is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues to material existence. God has said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring, sinful enemy of the world. I often begin Bhagavad Gita classes by reminding everyone present, including myself, that Bhagavad Gita is known as Gita Upanishad. It is an Upanishad and is the essence of all the Upanishads. Vacharam Padmanabhasya Mukha Padmadvinishrita. It is the best of the Upanishads because it is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. This knowledge has emanated from His lotus mouth. All the Vedic knowledge, Sarve Vedam Yatpadama Mananti, as the Upanishad says, all the Vedic knowledge of which the Upanishads are the Jnana Kanda, the knowledge portion, are meant for understanding that particular point, which is Krishna, and Krishna Himself speaks in Gita Upanishad, and we'll find in the Upanishads the essence of all Vedic knowledge directly expressed by Krishna. Now the Upanishads, they come in the form of questions and answers. Questions by disciples to gurus. And here we find that same thing, Arjuna, the disciple, is asking Krishna. And he's asked a very important question for everyone on the path of spiritual progress. Let's come inside. He's asked a very important question. Atakena prayuktoyam tapam charati purushaha anichanapi vashnaya baladiva niyojitaha. We want to be good, Arjuna says. Why is it that we perform sinful activities
as if forced to do so. Now, referring back to the Upanishads, we often find in the Upanishads there are very indirect answers given. It's not expressed very clearly. But here, the beauty of Bhagavad Gita, everything very clear. Krishna gives very clearly what is the situation. No beating about the bush. But what is the fact? Why are we performing wrong activities? Because of karma. Now this karma, that means material desire. It also specifically refers to sexual desire, because that is there are so many material desires. Desires for power, desires for wealth, desire for fame, desire for comfort, desire for knowledge. These are all different kinds of lust, of which the desire, sexual desire, that is considered to be very strongest, but they're all transformations of they're all not exactly transformations, different manifestations is a better word. Different manifestations of the desire to enjoy this material world, which Prabhupada analyzes in the purport, that desire to enjoy this material world is the perversion of the desire to love Krishna. Now, this lust or this material desire, Krishna explains in the next few verses that it's very deeply situated within our consciousness. Very deeply situated within our consciousness, so much so that practically it appears to be synonymous with our consciousness. We'll find, just how many verses later? After 1, 2, 3 verses after this, Krishna says, Indriyani paraniyaho indriyebhyo param manaha manasattu parabhute yobhute parasattu saha. That there are the senses, and above that is the mind, and above that is the intelligence, and above that is the soul. Yobhute parasattu saha is what Yobhute, that is above the buddhi, that thing, saha, here. So generally that means the Atma. But it's very interesting that Ramanujacharya translates this, that above the senses the mind, above this mind is the intelligence, and above the intelligence is love. It can be taken like that, because Yobhute parasattu saha, this thing, this point. It can be taken, it's not an incorrect interpretation, can be taken that way. It can be taken either way. We can refer to the Atma, which is referred to in the next verse. It can be taken. Evam buddhi param buddha samstabhyatma anamatmana. It can be understood that this refers to the Atma. It can also be understood that it refers to lust, because this is the topic under discussion at the present time. So in that case, if we understand it like this, that means that we have our senses, our mind, our intelligence, and more deep even, or more close to our consciousness is love, for those who are in material consciousness. So that means, and then that becomes the answer to the question, why is it that we are forced to do things which we don't want to? Forced to do things that we don't want to means that we have our senses which desire, or the senses are desiring, the senses are coming in contact with the sense object. And then there's the mind, by which senses are there, and as soon as there's a sense object, then the desire to enjoy is there, because lust is behind it. And there's the mind by which we think, yes, I should, or no, I shouldn't. Sankalpa, because I will accept or I will reject. And there's the intelligence which guides it. The animals, they don't have this. Right, what is right, what is wrong. Even the animals, to some extent, they may have that. To some extent, they may have a sense of right or wrong. A dog, he understands what he's trained by the master. He shouldn't pass urine inside the house. You have to train from a young age. But exactly a sense of right or wrong they don't have, but they know I shouldn't do this. If I do this, then I'll get a beating. It's for people who keep dogs in the house. It's Western culture. You should learn these things, then you'll be advanced. How to train your dog. An important part of Western life. In India, they don't do that. The dog pulls them around on the lead when they go for a walk. In the West, they train them so they don't pull. Anyway, this lecture is not about training dogs. It's about training the mind. So, sense of right and wrong, that is guided by the intelligence. By the intelligence, again, how does intelligence operate? Intelligence has to operate on the platform of knowledge. So we know what is right and wrong by hearing from Shastra, or even for those who don't follow the Shastras, they may be humanists, but they still have a sense, this is right and this is wrong according to their moral codes. So they have a sense of right and wrong, and therefore they understand, I should do this, I shouldn't do this. I see someone has dropped their purse on the ground. It has money inside. I just saw it drop out of their pocket. I can pick it up and put it in my pocket. But because I have a moral sense, then he has to feed his family, I should pick it up and give it to him. Or I may think that, if I'm caught, then I'll be beaten and people will chastise me and I'll have a bad reputation. Or we may think that if I take it and put it in my pocket, then I have to suffer some sinful reaction. There may be different reasons that we think it is right and it is wrong, but by our intelligence we think. According to our sensual or mental understanding, we should say, yes, I'll put it in my pocket. Because if the 500 rupees is in my pocket, I can enjoy life. And what the hell with the guy who it belongs to? I can enjoy my senses more. I can go to the movies, I can buy a bottle of whiskey, I can enjoy. But the intelligence says no. It's too risky, you'll get caught, and then you'll be beaten, and then people will chastise you, you'll have a bad reputation, your parents will be upset, and it's so many things you think. So the intelligence is it. And then we're thinking, no, I can enjoy, it's a risk, but it's not very much risk. And then, okay, put it in my pocket. And immediately someone turns around and says, where's my pocket? And they said, I just saw it, and then beat it. Or you may get away with it, so-called. Or you may take the money, and then you spend it, and then you think, actually I shouldn't have done that. And you feel very bad. I did wrong. Why did I do that? I knew it was wrong. I shouldn't have done it. Why did I do that? Because the lust was greater than the intelligence. The desire to enjoy was so strong that even though Janiya Shuniya Bishatani, Narottam was Manusha Janama Paya Radha Krishna Navajya Janiya Shuniya Bishatani. I got this human form of life. I got the opportunity to worship Radha and Krishna. But instead, I didn't. Therefore, I'm knowingly drinking poison. So I gave a very simple example of how someone may see someone's money has fallen out of his pocket and he takes it. But actually, you see, when it's that lust is even greater than the intelligence. What that means is that lust is actually very subtle. It's not always very simple like this. It can be very subtle also. As you see, the mental platform and the platform of the intellect is very complex. So when we say that lust is greater than the intelligence, it doesn't mean simply it doesn't mean simply that sensual urge, but it means very, very deeply it enters within our consciousness, which Krishna describes in the next verse. Dumena viyate vanye yata dasho malena cha yato dena vito garbham garbhat tata te nedana bhutam. The different examples are given. Just like fire is covered by smoke, or a mirror is covered by dust, or the embryo is covered by the womb. So there are different levels of covering of the living entity by lustful desire. And it enters so deeply into our consciousness that unless we're very clearly trained, unless our intelligence is purified and very clear, then we cannot distinguish lust from pure consciousness. You see, it said how Avitam Jnanametena. This lust covers the pure consciousness of the living being. Therefore, it is such an insidious enemy. It's almost like, you see, it's like a traitor in the state, or in the army. They're all making plans how to attack Pakistan or whatever. And but whatever they do, they find that so they're making a surprise attack, and already the whole Pakistani army is there waiting for them. And then they know someone's already told them. There's a traitor among us. Someone who's supposed to be acting for our interest, but is acting for the interest of the enemy. So like that, these lusty desires, they speak to us as if they're our friends. What you just enjoy? You just enjoy and you'll be happy. Why should you bother with this Krishna bhakti? You just enjoy. But then we find out that we're not happy. So these lusty desires are acting through our intelligence as if they are our friends. But actually it takes us away from Krishna bhakti. And even it may, as I'm saying, lust is generally defined as sexual desire. They may act in very subtle ways, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He warns that, what is it? Kutinati jiva hinsha, kutinati nishidata jiva hinshan, lava puja patishta jata upashakagan. He warns that there are subtle desires which can reside in the heart of the transcendentalist, of the devotee, which can spoil his bhakti. Kutinati, duplicitous behavior. If one is not acting straightforwardly, he tells people that, yes, you've just come, you give some donation for Krishna, you should serve Krishna, you give some donation, but actually he's not giving the donation to Krishna. He's saying, you do in the name of Krishna bhakti and preaching to people. You do bhakti, you'll get a benefit, you get 5,000 rupees, and then he puts it in his own pocket. So that's duplicitous, cheating behavior. So in the name of bhakti, of course that's outright cheating. Nishidachan, he does things which are against the Vedic directions. Jiva hinshan, in the name of bhakti, mistreating people. And then, very subtly, labha, in the name of bhakti, one is thinking that, well, I'm performing bhakti, but I also need something for my body, because I need to, we have to keep the body fit for serving Krishna. Wherefore, for the sake of bhakti, I need air conditioner, first class car, and all the best things, because I have to keep the body fit to serve Krishna. So in the name of serving Krishna, we're living a very luxurious life. Or puja, We think that people should worship me, and Pratishta, people should honor me. So we think that yes, actually I'm a guru, so everyone should worship me. And actually the guru is supposed to be a transparent via media. He's supposed to accept the worship and offer that. But if he thinks, yes, everyone should worship me, why aren't you worshipping me? He's actually desirous of that for his own subtle sense gratification. Or desirous of honor. It can be mixed up. This other example Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives of the Bhakti Lata, the growing tree or the creeper of devotional service. But this is mixed up with the Upashaka or the weeds, which may look like Bhakti. We may think, I'm doing Bhakti. You see, I'm working so hard to serve Krishna. And in the beginning, the desire may be that I will serve Krishna. But what happens when people say, oh, this is a very nice devotee? And you think, oh. Just to allow a little bit of that desire to enter our heart. People will praise me. And then immediately, that is calm. That is material desire. And we desire that. And we work very hard for Krishna. And we serve Krishna very nicely. But actually, the desire to be praised is growing in our heart. And eventually what happens is that originally the desire to serve Krishna purely only for his pleasure becomes gradually replaced by the desire to be honored by others. So externally we're going on with bhakti, but in our hearts, lust has taken over, the desire for honor. And what happens, in the beginning it may be very subtle, but eventually if the devotee doesn't check that, then it just simply manifests as gross sexual desire. So that you come back, this calm, it means material desire, and the grossest manifestation which you eventually come to is gross sexual desire. So sometimes you see, it may be that a sannyasi or a staunch brahmachari, they fall victim to sexual desire because they haven't checked. They may have checked the gross sexual desire, but in their hearts they haven't checked this desire for honor, fame, name, and therefore they become weakened by the desires, material desires, and their intelligence becomes polluted, because instead of the intelligence being dictated by Krishna in the form of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, instead of the consciousness being purified by placing our desires at the lotus feet of Krishna, instead, maybe in a very subtle form, the desire for material enjoyment is coming through, and therefore the intelligence becomes subordinate to material desire. Therefore this is, Ramanuja has given this interpretation, that Yurbuddhe Parakastu Saha, that the intelligence becomes, for one who is controlled by lusty desires, the intelligence becomes subordinate to material desires. And therefore the whole line comes. Lust, intelligence, mind, senses, and therefore everything is pushed by lusty desires. Therefore, everything has to be placed at the lotus feet of Krishna. Therefore, Vajahure Nana, Srinanda Nandana, Savainana Krishna Padara Vindaya. One should place the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. So then when we say, why not the consciousness, why not the intelligence? Because the mind is the platform where all these things are tested. But ultimately with the mind we have to accept or reject. This is the business of the mind. Sankalpa vikalpa. I shall do this, I shall not do this. I shall act in this way. From one side the senses are pushing, and from the other side the intelligence is dictating, and in the middle is the mind. But if the intelligence is dictated by lust, which, see, lust is on the sensual platform, and That is saying to the mind, you do this, you do that. And on the other side there's the intelligence. But if lust is coming from the other side also, then there's no hope. Then we're simply on the animal platform. That's why Prabhupada would always say that without Krishna consciousness one is simply a cat and a dog. Why? He's so intelligent? Because the intelligence is being dictated by lusty desires. The animals don't have the intelligence to differentiate between what we should do and what we should not do. So if the human beings don't have that, their intelligence may be working to build big skyscraper buildings and have so much technological development, but their intelligence is dictated by lusty desires. So they're only on the sensual platform. They can't escape the dictates of the senses. They can't go beyond it. So how to break this cycle? That the senses are impelling us towards activities to fulfill our lusty desires. And the mind has to choose or reject. But if the mind cannot choose or reject without what to do, what not to do, and without the help of the intelligence. But then the intelligence has to be guided by proper activity, by proper understanding, which comes from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Therefore, praviting chanaviting chajanana vidurasuraha. Those who are demoniac, they don't know what is proper and what is not proper. Because they are on the platform of Ajnana Chavijata Tata Sambhavan Asurin. The demons were proud, arrogant, conceited, angry, same thing here, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, angry, harsh, very harsh in their behavior, very roughly behaved, very nasty. And Ajnana, they don't have knowledge. You say they have knowledge, they're building big skyscraper buildings, they have not. But they don't have knowledge of Shastra. Even they may have knowledge of Shastra, just like Ravana, he was a Pandit. He was the son of a Pandit and he himself was learned in Shastra. He was performing yajna. But he didn't have the knowledge to differentiate between what is to be done and what is not to be done. In other words, they have knowledge of Shastra, he lacked vivek, or proper discrimination. What Raskol calls Vivekananda. It's completely the wrong name for him. Absolutely the wrong name. He had no proper vivek. Therefore he could accept such a nonsense idea as Jato Mat Tatota. If you say Jato Mat Tatota, then that means there's no vivek. Everything is all the same. And then how his name came Vivekananda? It's absolutely the wrong name. Because he cannot differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. So it's all the same. Everything's all right. It's all. Then why Vivek? When there's no Vivek. Vivek means to discriminate between what is proper action and what is not proper action. Tasmat Shastra Pramananta, on the basis of Shastra. Of course, this rascal he also used to call Shastra, but then he just twisted it all up and came to some nonsense idea. So, one should know actually what is right and what is wrong on the platform of Shastra, but then not only Shastra, but there has to be also the mercy of Krishna. Otherwise one may be a Shastra Jnani, but he cannot understand Shastra. And we find so many persons, they have superficial knowledge of Shastra, but they don't understand Krishna. And therefore, even if by their knowledge of Shastra they go up to the Parampadam, again they fall down again. Because they don't know what is the actual purpose of Shastra, which is Krishna. So Krishna is speaking just giving the actual point. It is lust. This is the cause of all our problems. Otherwise, without understanding that, just like you were asking about astrology. So, without understanding very clearly that Krishna consciousness is the solution, then even you see someone who becomes very much absorbed in astrology, they see everything through the eyes of astrology. And they say, oh, you see this person, he's having this problem, that's because he has Rahu in this house, and this and Ketu in this house, and so that may be, that's an indication of the problem. But the real problem is Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajaguna Samudgava. That is the real problem, because you are not Krishna conscious. And you may adjust this that you recite Hanuman Chalisa, or you wear some ring or something like that. But that doesn't actually solve the problem. Because the real problem is lack of Krishna consciousness. Or someone who is studying Vastu Shastra, they say, oh, you're having a lot of mental tension, so you block out this window and you put a wall here. But it's not the real solution. The real solution is Krishna Bhakti. Now, if you put a window here and a wall there, and if the guy actually knows Vastu Shastra, or if the astrologer actually knows astrology, because many astrologers, they don't actually know very well. Especially some devotees, they think they just read a few books and they think, now I know astrology. And they give advice as if they're a great astrologer. But actually, to understand astrology, you have to go so deeply. It's a very deep science. So, there may be some relief of the symptoms by, well, someone will say, you see, well, you're like that because someone who's into Ayurveda, they'll say he's like that because he's a Vata. You see, people of Vata, they're like that. And someone who's Pitta, they're like this. And so they'll tell you, well, you eat this food increases Vata, don't eat that. And you should eat more of food which increases the Vayu, not the Vayu, that which increases the Pitta or the Kapha. You have to balance you see, and then you won't have so many problems. So we're looking at it from different angles. But what is the root problem? The root problem is the desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. And what is the solution to that? To become Krishna conscious. Otherwise, it's karma, as I was saying, it's very subtle at different levels. Very, very subtle. And how to extricate ourselves from that. Even Prabhupada, he used to say, I used to think that my Guru Maharaj, when he first saw me, he told me to preach. Actually, before even Prabhupada said anything to him, the first thing, before even saying my name, I'm this and that, Prabhupada, the first thing he told him, we should preach Krishna Bhakti. As soon as he saw him. He didn't wait, what is your name, where are you from? Immediately he told him, you are a young man, you're educated, you should preach Krishna Bhakti. So, Prabhupada said he got that order from his Guru. And then his last exchange with his Guru, he sent a letter that I'm a householder, I couldn't serve you, how can I serve you? He got a reply, you should preach Krishna Bhakti. He thought, well, that's the first thing he told me. And then after all these years, again, it's the same thing he's telling me. So Prabhupada, he described that actually I thought, well, I'm a Grihastha, and I thought, let me earn a lot of money. Because the sannyasis are all begging, and let me earn a lot of money and with that I'll preach. But it never worked. So, of course, Prabhupada is a liberated soul. But this is an example. We may think, let me do this first, and let me do that first, and then I'll preach. First I have to memorize all the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, then I'll preach. Or first of all, you see, I should become more pure, then I'll preach. You may think that. Or you may think that, yes, I'll serve Krishna, but first I have to do this and that. And there may be some case. But it may be also that simply in the name of Krishna Bhakti, we're putting it off. Because we have some material desire to fulfill. So, Maya a very formidable enemy. But, as Krishna is pointing out here, actually Maya is not the enemy. Purusha sukha dukhanam bhoktyutvai hetu ruchate. Karya karana katyutvai hetu prakriti ruchate. The combinations and permutations of material nature that we experience, the cause of that is prakriti, Maya. But the suffering or enjoyment, so-called enjoyment, we ourselves are the cause of that. We may say, oh, Maya is giving me a hard time. Maya is simply the instrument. We ourselves are the cause. The enemy is not Maya. Here is that the enemy is lust. And what is that lust? That is our own perverted desire to be separate from Krishna. So you may say, oh, Maya is giving me such a hard time. No, it's not Maya. It's our Maya is giving us a hard time because we ourselves, our desire is to be separate from Krishna, and therefore Maya simply as a result of that is giving us the necessary punishment. But it is our own wrong desire to be separate from Krishna that is the cause of all our suffering. Krishna has explained it. We are the rascals. Murha. Krishna uses these words repeatedly in Gita. So we'll discuss more about this tomorrow. Is there any question?
After that, then after some time, the people were not acting like that, or means when like nobody liberated.
Prabhupada liberated himself from birth. Well, he described that he was already married at that time, so he had a household responsibility also. And it wasn't that he didn't preach, but Prabhupada said, I came in my old age to preach. He said, actually I should have done it right away, but I didn't. So we can understand there's a plan of Krishna also, because you can see that Prabhupada, what he did, when he did start preaching, of course in the beginning he was struggling, what he did, that so many people were preaching throughout their lives, they didn't do anything, even 1 millionth of what Prabhupada did. Among all of Prabhupada's godbrothers together, they didn't do 1 millionth of what Prabhupada did, even sannyasis who were preaching so many years. So one thing, there's a plan of Krishna there. Another thing is that there's also a sense of family responsibility, that when there are certain responsibilities to be discharged. So that's also part of being an acharya, is that even if one is perfectly realized, that he should set a good example for human society. Otherwise, everyone in the name of preaching, as soon as there's some difficulty in home life, which there will be, certainly, then they'll, oh, now I'm going to be a preacher. They'll just drop it. Another thing Prabhupada said is that one may not neglect the order of the Guru, but he may defer it. Well, defer means you may do it after some time. So he said, in my case, I never thought not to fulfill the order of my Guru, but I didn't fulfill it immediately. So there are some different considerations.
If Mungas has postponed teaching that non-money that they become pure as a but purity is the same teaching that you have to reach the
purity, yes. So purity is based on desire. There's one thing we always used to hear from Gauriya, because ISKCON was preaching, and they were saying, well, first you have to become pure, then you preach, because they weren't preaching. Now they got some idea from Prabhupada and ISKCON. They used to say, first you have to become pure. So when Prabhupada was asked about this idea, he said, then you'll never become pure. If you think I'll become pure, then I'll preach. When are you going to become pure? And you're only ever going to say, now I'm pure. But rather, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order is there to immediately preach. So some level of purity is there. You shouldn't be smoking cigarettes and preaching. But some minimum level should be there. We're following the principle. And we should also preach according to our realization and according to our ability. Just like everyone can take Prabhupada's books and go and distribute them. You can do that. So that's better. And that's why you have Prabhupada preaching through his books.
The days of material enjoyment was a devotional path which involved in progressing devotion. But Krishna promises in the Bhagavad Gita, it can take forward path devotion more and less. Krishna promises in Gita that he will control. My devotee will never fall down.
Krishna says my devotee will never be destroyed. He doesn't say he will never fall down. He speaks of the Brashta yogi. He speaks of the yogi. Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita as the yogi who falls down. He says, Name Bhakta Pranashyati. He doesn't say Name Bhakta Patanti. He doesn't say my devotee will never fall. The devotee may fall, but Krishna, if he's actually serious to be a devotee, even if he's fallen, Krishna helps him to get back up again. But if one is not attentive on the devotional path, then he can't expect that, oh, now I'm a devotee, Krishna's got to look after me. One has to be serious also. If one doesn't follow the process properly, then he may fall down. Or even he may have what is called an accidental fall down. Means he wasn't planning it, but somehow he came into a situation where he found he couldn't control his senses. And he fell down. But a devotee, if he falls down, he doesn't become like a karmi, because he's under the shelter of Krishna. Even if he falls, Krishna helps him to get back up again. But then if one thinks that, oh, okay, I fall down, Krishna will help him, then Krishna doesn't help. That means you deliberately want to fall. That's rascal. Hare Krishna started by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he's called Sankirtan Pravarta. Means he established it. Not exactly began, because Sankirtan is eternal. Began in the sense that he's the root of everything. But he established it within the world. Although Sankirtan is eternal.
The question is, now because mainstream, ISKCON is coming to a lot of problems. Though we are doing the Sankirtan movement, it's done.
Well, it's not the first time in history that there's been problems. Even right after the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there were so many bogus incarnations and pretenders. And we just speak about the Gauriya Math. The Gauriya Math just, it's split up into so many different groups with severe infighting. So ISKCON's gone through problems with actually nothing like the Gauriya Math. So we're living in the kingdom of Maya. We can expect there will be problems. On hearing a lecture, my mind concentrates or catches hold of a point or part of the speech which I consider interesting or important, and I ponder upon it. Pondering and hearing is not instantaneous at all times, and I miss hearing the next words. Kindly explain how to hear perfectly. Well, every statement of Shastra, or in the lecture we're supposed to be speaking about Shastra, every statement can be expanded. Just like Prabhupada is giving purport to the verse. But what Krishna says, it's so deep that hundreds of books can be written about every word that Krishna said. So similarly, when we're speaking, and someone's speaking, everything that could be said, you can think more about it. But then, when you think more about it, then again that thought, if it's actually Krishna conscious, then again you can expand that again. But if you do so, then you miss the flow of the lecture. So there are different, just like if you're reading, there are different ways of reading. You can read all the verses and try to see the flow in them. And if you read by the purport, then you go more deeply into each verse. So there's the flow of thought, and there's the general flow, and then there's deeply going into individual points. But when we're listening to a lecture, then we have to keep our mind on the flow of the lecture. Otherwise, if we divert our mind into pondering deeply about an individual point, then we'll miss the overall flow. So better we keep on listening and don't start pondering. You can write down some notes or something. While preaching, a lot of glories are coming. How to handle all right? What does that mean, a lot of glories? A lot of ecstasies? Who wrote this? Appreciate them very much. You can just like in Bhagavatam, that Shukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, Viryanesha te prashna. You asked a very nice question. And similarly, we see Shonak and the Rishis, they sometimes say to Sudha Goswami, Sadhu, very nice. So you can appreciate, you can say after the class, is very nice. You can express appreciation. Yamunacharya told that he would spit at the thought of enjoying with women. Is this thought a spark due to the activities in karmi life? Yeah, Prabhupada explained that. He explained that. You see, even if you're completely pure in Krishna consciousness, thoughts from previous existence, previous life may come. Just like that stated in Bhagavad Gita, Apoyamanama chalapratishtam samudrama tappa vishanti advat tadvat kama pravishanti anpare vashantunat nodima kama kamihi. Krishna explains that so many thoughts may enter the mind, but one who is like a person who is like the ocean, it's like rivers entering the ocean. The rivers may be very powerful, and they can carry away even big elephants. But when it enters the sea, it doesn't make any difference to the sea, because the sea is oceanic. In English there's the word oceanic. It means vast, and so even the great rivers don't affect it. So that example is given in the Gita, that someone whose intelligence is like that of the ocean, then even so many thoughts may enter the mind, but he's not disturbed. So Prabhupada gave this example of Yamunacharya quoting this verse, but even though he is Nava Krishna Padava Vinde Nava Nava Rasadhanamudvatarantanāsid, he said he's enjoying within his mind the thoughts of the pleasures of Krishna Bhakti. But sometimes it may enter his mind the thought that previously he was enjoying with women. But he doesn't act on that. Rather, he feels disgusted at that. But Prabhupada gave the example that the thought is still entering, it may still enter the mind due to previous practice. Prabhupada gave the example. He said, you see, now I'm practicing Krishna Bhakti, I'm preaching Bhakti all over the world, but sometimes I think of my family, he said, or I'm completely detached from my family. Sometimes the thought may come in my mind. Well, that doesn't mean that he changed his whole life and he was enjoying, but naturally the thought may come. The thought is there in the consciousness, so it may come. But when it comes, Prabhupada doesn't think, well, now I should go back to my family, and no such idea comes. Just the thought comes. It comes and it goes. Like a bubble may come up from in the lake. It comes up and pops. Or it goes. It comes and it goes. So like a bubble, the thought comes, we should let it come. From deep in the consciousness, just like from deep in the bottom of the lake, so one bubble may come out of the mud. And it comes and let it simply go. Maybe we're going to do it. 1, 2, 3, I'll ask him at one. Let's take it distance one.
In this verse, Paratattu Saha, where is Saha referred to the lust, as it was.
No, Ramanuja did it like that, although other commentators say it refers to the Atma.
Will the Saha always insist us to keep us always separate from Krishna consciousness, or
yes, therefore we have, instead of putting up above all the love, we have to put Krishna.
Then what was the state while I was sitting in this class of this Saha?
Well, I hope it was, you're listening to Atma Gyan, where we hope that you are on the platform of Atma. That's the whole point, that the Atma is supposed to dictate to the intelligence. But if we're not self-controlled, if we're not fixed in Atma Gyan, then the lust is dictating. So it's either Krishna or Maya. And that depends on our desire. So if Kam is for Krishna seva, then we're on the platform of Atma. But if Kam is for material enjoyment, then we're on the platform of destruction. Buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranashyati. We're on the platform of destruction. It's going. Jayata vishwapunkam, sangateshu tajayate, sangat sanjayate tanaha. It's all the same thing. There's the senses, and by meditating on the senses, then desire comes. And then from desire comes anger, through the whole process, and spoil, and everything's finished. Then?
But for that Maharaj,
For us, it's a whole fog we're living in. Our material desires. For him, it's a bubble. For us, it's the air, whole air we're breathing. Our material desires.
for him, in the pure state, he must have crossed all the subtle level of enjoying.
No, yes, he's crossed the subtle level of enjoying. But the consciousness is still there. Well, the remembrance is still there. It's not that you cross over but then everything that previously becomes blank. If someone else, now you're chanting Hare Krishna, you can see you're a great pure devotee, but what were you doing before this? No idea. Where were you born? No idea. It becomes like a dream. But still the memory is there. You may remember some dreams that you had many years ago. Does anyone remember dreams they had many years ago? Sometimes it's a very strongly experienced dream. You may remember it for many years, but you know it's there in the consciousness. And sometimes it may come back in the consciousness, even though it's just a dream. And that doesn't mean you take it seriously. So similarly, you may remember, I was doing so many bad things. And the thought comes and it goes, or rather, spit. Just like you may go back to a place where say you're living in Madras, but you were born in some village, and you didn't go there for 20 years. You go back and say, I used to sit here, and I used to do this, and I used to do that. And you remember them. So like that, a devotee, he may see things and remember things. previous to Krishna consciousness, and you just, to me it seems like that, and I ask so many devotees, and they also say the same thing, well, life previous to Krishna consciousness, remember, it just seems like a dream. It doesn't seem like reality, because the consciousness is so different. I can't hear, what do you say? Yeah. No, it's not exactly knowledge. No, I didn't say that. You say you may have knowledge and it still may affect it. One may have knowledge. Even a man of knowledge can fall down due to sensual attraction. Vidvam sānapi kaishati. Nātra svaso bihitrava nāvivitāsanavada balavan indriya gramo vidvam sānapi kaishati. One should not sit close to his mother, sister or daughter because the senses are very strong. And Prabhupada gave a rhetorical question. Well, that must be for some foolish rascal. But no, Vidvan, even one who is very learned, they may also be disturbed because the senses are so powerful, even for Vidvan. Also in the Gita that Krishna says, what is that? Prashabam Manaha. There's a verse which says that even the senses are overcoming. Indriyas Indriyasyate. What is that? The same thing is said anyway. Even as Prashabam, by force, the mind is overcome. Even a man of knowledge. So one may have knowledge, but unless one is fixed in the consciousness of serving Krishna, then he may be overcome by nasty desires. Can you find out that verse? Where is that coming? Second chapter? Yeah, I just opened the book. You tell me on the right page. I knew it somewhere. Indriyani pramatini haranti prasabam manaha. The senses are so strong that they take away even the mind. By force, prasabam. By force. It appears to be. The same thing Arjuna is asking. Anicchanapi vaishnaya balad, by force. Balad even the Arjuna. It is almost by force. So powerful. So unless our desire to serve Krishna is very strong, then the very strong